The second thing, major thing, I guess, that Blackburn wants to do in this introduction is to, in a way, justify the study of philosophy, to sell it to you to some degree, and in a way that's a much easier task than trying to define or give a sense of what philosophy is and how a philosophical question differs, how it can be distinguished from a non-philosophical question, which is very, very difficult. So in a way, it's easier, like why study philosophy? I can just give you some reasons. In a way, it's not easy at all, and I think that you know questioning the value of doing philosophy is part of a philosophy class. Is this worth it? What is the point of all this? What is the point of asking these questions? And one of the things that Blackburn concedes is that philosophical questions bake no bread. You know, that is, it's not clear that they have a practical value. And students oftentimes have busy lives and wonder why they should be required to take a class that has no obvious practical value, and they have every right to ask that question. But one of the things that Blackburn says, he's going to take three approaches, three types of answer to the question: the high ground, middle ground, and low ground. The high ground answer is, well, there's a lot of stuff in life that bakes no bread, that has no obvious practical value. I mean, most of the things that we value, love, art, just the games. I mean, some things we do purely for the pleasure of them, obviously, and other things we do because we think that they're intrinsically valuable, or things that we. Now, it may be that doing philosophy is not as pleasurable as playing a game or even experiencing a beautiful work of art, but there is the idea that it may just be that doing philosophy, becoming more knowledgeable about philosophy, may just improve your life. I mean, and like a lot of things that do improve our lives, they take a certain amount of work. I mean, the more you know about art, the more valuable it is. The more you know about music, the more pleasurable it is to you. I mean, nobody really enjoys reading Shakespeare the first time they read it, but as they gain the kind of knowledge and experience that comes with reading it, they see that it's really great, and I'm glad that I know this. Philosophy could be viewed as something like that. I mean, there are these questions, and they have been thought by people throughout history, Western history, or other histories too, Eastern philosophies, to be valuable questions and to be important questions, and to be questions that, if a person is going to have some aspirations to be educated, kind of question that they probably should think about, at least for some portion of their lives. So one of the ways that we could justify philosophy is, as he says on page 6, we want this for its own sake. It is intrinsically valuable. But then he talks about the sort of middle ground and low ground answers to that. And I'm not really sure about the distinction, frankly, between middle ground and low ground, but I can certainly see the distinction between high ground, which is to say philosophy is valuable for its own sake. It just makes you a better person, or a more refined person, a more educated person, and we all want that, I guess. The middle ground is where he says that reflection is continuous with practice. Now, if that's what philosophy is, it's sort of thinking about concepts, thinking about our view of the world, thinking about the things perhaps that we take for granted that shape our view of the world, then he seems to be arguing that the study of philosophy can have some practical value when he says that reflection, or philosophical reflection, is continuous with practice. Well, what does he mean by that? He gives some examples. For instance, he says, well, we may have some philosophical convictions about the relation or lack thereof between mind and body. This is a metaphysical thesis will become familiar with, it's attributed to philosopher Descartes, called dualism, the idea that there are two components to reality. There's the mental and the physical, and that these are both parts of reality, but they're utterly separate. That is, the physical is that which has extension, physical objects, things that take up space, things that are composed of material, physical material, as opposed to mind, which does not exist in space, which thinks but is not something that has extension or is and that these things, and the problem is how these things interact. And he gives an example of how we might deal with mental illness. If we had the conviction that mind and body have nothing to do with each other, we may make certain assumptions about how to treat somebody who is mentally ill. Whereas if we thought that mind and body were not so separate, and that either they were the same thing or they were two different things that interacted, we would take another approach. I guess a fairly good example, the idea that fundamental philosophical questions can have an effect on how we actually live our lives, and certainly moral questions, which is, not so much really part of this course. This course is really a course in metaphysics and epistemology, but it's okay. We can go into a little morality, but certainly our suppositions about right and wrong, about human nature, about what constitutes justice, or even the importance of justice in human life. And he gives that example too. If we believe that all human beings are always self-interested all the time, then we're going to live our lives a certain way. But maybe that's not true. It's a matter of philosophical reflection. That is, it may be that after philosophical reflection we do decide that all human beings are self-interested all the time. But that's a matter to be mulled over by philosophy. But the point is that however we decide philosophically, that those conclusions are going to shape the way we practically live our lives. And finally, he says, I think his low ground example is that if we don't think at all, if we don't engage in any critical thinking, that is, actually, think about what we believe, what the people around us believe, and think about what the actual grounds are, what the reasons are that justify those beliefs, that we're going to get in trouble. And he cites Goya's famous etching, and I'll put it up on the website, the sleep of reason. That is, that the idea that if we stop engaging and thinking and questioning, that we're in for a lot of problems. And I think that each one of us could look around in our society and probably come up with examples of regions of culture where people have stopped questioning and asking questions, and that bad things can happen. So in this, this introduction is good as far as it goes. All he's really trying to do is to give you a sense of what philosophy is, a sense of what distinguishes a philosophical question, and some reasons to just perhaps encourage you for why the study of philosophy is a valuable thing.